is Mandy Penney, and I am the lead educational developer for digital pedagogies and writing across the curriculum at CTL. My pronouns are she and her. And I'm joining all of you today from Southwestern Ontario on land that is governed by the London Township Treaty of 1796. And these are the ancestral lands of the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee, the Lenape-Wauk, and the Attawandaron peoples. You'll see on this first slide here that I've identified some key frameworks that inform my approach to teaching and learning. Because I am new to the institution, I wanted folks to get a little bit of a chance to know what I'm interested in and the kinds of approaches that I take. So I'm very interested in a students as partners framework to teaching and learning, process-based assessment, sustainable writing practices, anti-oppressive and inclusive pedagogies, and universal design for learning. Despite sort of naming all of the more formal practices and approaches, though, ultimately, here's what I believe to be true. It's that if we approach writing pedagogy with a consideration of how to develop trusting relationships with our students and how to foster strong learning communities, we're going to be more likely to engage our students. And we'll also be more likely to approach our work in ways that are more sustainable for ourselves as educators, as instructors. I think that we can view students as our partners in this work. And I also think that every class and every student will bring kind of different strengths, needs, and values to the classroom space. So getting to know our students and designing flexible writing assignments can support authentic learning and also community building at the same time. I want to point out too that we're still very much in a challenging kind of global moment and a challenging moment in Canadian history with the ongoing pandemic and with the violence that we're seeing overseas. We bring our whole selves as educators and as students to our work. And so I want us to make sure that while we move through this webinette, that we're thinking about the cognitive as well as the affective or psychological impacts of our work as well. And I wanted to briefly share with all of you a quote by Dr. Amy Morrison, who is at the University of Waterloo and who you see here in this slide. And in the photo, of course, she looks happy, quite put together. She's done a lot of really good thinking and writing on social media and through blogs about what it means to come to teaching and learning in this particular moment. And I pulled a quote for all of you that I'll read to you before we get started. And this is from the blog Hook and Eye. So I'll quote Amy here. I don't know about you, but as empowered and fortunate as I am in my life, my personal resilience has been sorely challenged by our capital C, capital S situation. It's hard to transform my teaching when I can hardly manage to answer an email some days. And many of my students are in the same boat. And that boat's got a leak, and their bailing bucket is a thimble. I have to find a way to make it work flexibly and compassionately and nimbly. And so I'll invite all of you who are here with me today to make space for compassion and flexibility for ourselves, for our colleagues, and for our students during this webinette and beyond. So before we get into the two strategies that I'm going to share with you today, I'll invite everyone to just take 2 deep breaths with me. So we're going to breathe in through the nose and out through the mouth. And one more time, in through the nose and out through the mouth. So the first of 2 strategies that I'm going to share with you today to engage student writers is to encourage flexible and multimodal assignments that engage students in authentic communication contexts. Designing flexible assignments here means offering choices for students so that they can meet learning objectives in ways that meet their own interests, their strengths, and their access needs. Offering this kind of flexibility through assignment design allows students to have agency in terms of how they engage with researching, with thinking, with writing. This could include considerations like flexible due dates, perhaps co-created assignments, but flexibility can also be offered simply through offering choice in terms of which kind of assignment they submit. So for example, a student could choose between a public-facing blog or a conference presentation for scholars audiences in their discipline. A second way to engage students in authentic communication is by designing multimodal assignments. And so multimodal assignments are ones that allow students to use a variety of communication modes. So here we're thinking about, textual, audio and oral means and visual means to achieve their goals and to meet their audience's needs. And these kinds of assignments can be, but are not necessarily restricted to what we think of as sort of the more traditional text-based academic research paper. Another option would be to encourage students to engage with writing through any combination of textual, visual, and audio approaches. Perhaps things like videos. We could think about offering podcast assignments or digital magazines that are geared towards a variety of audiences. It could also provide opportunities to develop a public-facing voice through op-eds, blogs, or investigative journalism assignments. Offering multiple modal choices and options to work alone, in pairs, or in groups can engage students in authentic communication situations that they will take with them beyond this class into other courses and then on into their professional and personal lives after university. These kinds of assignments also allow you as the instructor to control the number of assignments, the amount of feedback provided and who is providing that feedback, and the time it takes to assess the work for grading purposes. What I have done for you on this slide is to just include a few different examples of authentic multimodal assignments that I have designed myself in some cases, or have collaborated with faculty in designing for their courses across a variety of disciplines. Some of the communication types that have worked really well, not just across disciplines, but also across years of study, include blogs, critical reflection assignments, e-portfolios, and digital storytelling. I'm not going to spend a long time on this slide, but what I would encourage you to do when this presentation is made available in a couple of weeks on our website is to come back to this part of the presentation to have a look to see if there are any of these assignment types that might meet the needs of your students in the courses that you're teaching. I'd be happy to book consultations with any of you to collaborate with you as you look to design multimodal writing assignments for your courses. So that's the first strategy. The second strategy is to build student collaboration and community into high and low stakes assignments. Here, you can build your assignment in a way that really formalizes, makes explicit the notion that students are active participants in both their own assignments and perhaps in the assessment of student work via scaffolded workshops that are built into the assignment. So the workshops themselves are a component of what goes right into the assignment design. Sharing the work of writing with your students can increase engagement and agency for your students, and it can also build their confidence as they work to develop their authorial voices. So for example, you could build in class time for scaffolded writing workshops at different stages of the writing process. This could include protected writing time for students during class or peer review sessions as well. Providing these kinds of opportunities for students to participate in supporting each other through this kind of workshop process nurtures an engagement that isn't just individual, but it's relational. And so doing this helps them understand writing as an iterative process, but also as a process that benefits through the building of community and support. And so the development of supportive writing communities benefits the writers and the reviewers alike. My second webinette in this series on engaging student writers while managing your own workload will go into more detail on this point, so how to build in useful in-class time for writing workshops. And I'll talk a little bit about some of the logistics. So class size is one that immediately comes to mind for a lot of instructors. We'll talk about community building before, during, and after these workshops, and ways that students and you as the instructor could potentially get some support across campus as well. To finish up, before I open this up for a broader conversation, I wanted to provide an example of a scaffolded writing assignment that I helped develop in collaboration with a faculty member at another institution. I'm in the process right now of annotating these assignments, the really detailed instructions that we gave to students. And with permission from my colleague, I'll be making those available on our website, hopefully in the coming weeks. But just to give you a sense of one way that I've approached this kind of work, the context here is that it was a third-year course on global Indigenous dispossession. And the learning objective for the students was to write a situated critique of an institutional research module through a decolonial lens. And so we built out 3 different communication assignments for the students. The first assignment was a social location activity with a personal reflection. So to get the students thinking about their own personal situatedness and how who they are as people and the communities to which they belong will have an impact on how they approach, the research and the writing work and the communities of learning that they're involved in. The second assignment was to complete a document analysis. So here they were looking at an institutional module on methodologies for working with Indigenous peoples and communities in research processes. And they were looking not just at what those processes were, but also the entire framing of the document. So where was it housed in the institution? What language was used? What kinds of resources or links out were included in that process, to think about the institutional situatedness of those modules. The third assignment brought assignments 1 and 2 together, and the students were asked to write a manifesto. So here we wanted them to work in a slightly different genre to a policy critique and to do something that was more public facing and built on the principle of having values or tenets that they would then analyze through the frameworks that they had learned in the course. So the goal here was to get them writing for social and institutional change. So here, what I think we accomplished was that we were able to engage student writers by connecting who they were as individuals and the communities to which they belong with real world analysis work and making recommendations. So bringing them into those kind of scholarly and community conversations, and then get them writing with the intent to make specific kinds of social change. On the instructor's side, we tried to make these as sustainable as possible in her own workload by including in-class workshops on genres. So I was the one who went in to do those at that institution. I was the coordinator of their writing and learning center, by providing opportunities for peer review so that it wasn't just the instructor providing feedback, but the students were providing feedback to each other throughout this process, and through a scaffolded assignment design to make sure that we were working through these different genres of writing together as a community. I've also included here in my slides just a selection of some of the resources that have really inspired and driven my work in this area of engaging student writers, if anyone is interested in those.